Well, the Heritage Foundation military its lowest rating in its 9-year history, raising serious concerns about America's abilities to defend itself or support regional conflicts. Our congressional correspondent Kimberly Dukart joins us with more details on this from Capitol Hill. Kimberly.
Bob, good to be with you. The Heritage Foundation has actually lowered U.S. military capabilities to the designation of weak against the previous year that rated it marginal. In its executive summary, the Heritage Foundation says that this is the logical consequence of years of sustained use, underfunding, poorly defined priorities, wildly shifting security policies, exceedingly poor discipline in program execution, and a profound lack of seriousness across the national security establishment, even as threats to the U.S. interests have surged. Their sobering assessment is that the U.S. would not be able to meet the demands of a single major regional conflict and would be even more ill-equipped to handle two at the same time. The report further cites the possibility of two-front fighting in Russia's war on Ukraine and China's aggressive rhetoric in the Pacific. It also rated each military branch's capability, capacity, and readiness, with the Marine Corps receiving the strongest rating, the Army marginal, and the Air Force falling to the bottom of that list, receiving a very weak rating. The report said that the Air Force was downgraded from the previous year due to the deepening of previously assessed issues related to aging aircraft and very poor pilot training and retention. It went on to say that the retirement of aircraft is outpacing the introduction of new aircraft, worsening the service's capacity problem. Today, Bob, we heard from the former Vice President Mike Pence, who spoke at the Heritage Foundation while all of this is happening, including this assessment doubling down on the need to support Ukraine in its war effort against Russia.
As Russia continues its unconscionable war of aggression in Ukraine, I believe the conservatives must make it clear that Putin must stop, and Putin will pay. There can be no room in the conservative movement for apologists for Putin.
Well, the Biden administration on Tuesday laid out what it believes should be the priorities for the Senate's version of the annual defense spending bill. That includes new nuclear missiles and more military support for Ukraine. Congress is out of session, but we expect this to be a larger conversation when members return about what should be included in that annual defense spending legislation.
All right, Kimberly, thank you very much. Here with reaction is Ambassador for America First Policy Institute, Newsmax contributor, and retired Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Dump. Jessie, what's your first reaction when you hear the military is weaker? Do you agree with that? And what are your thoughts about it?
I have followed this annual report from the Heritage Foundation for many, many years. It's not that they are biased or trying to go after the Biden administration. They have graded the military readiness in the past, the recent past, very similarly, with marginal results or weak results. And under President Trump, there was an aggressive measure to try to improve. And actually, everybody was actually at a readiness capability. But this doesn't happen overnight. The mere fact that the military has demonstrated that their priorities have been on policies, including gender and making sure everybody feels emotion, that they are connected, which we heard the Secretary of the Army say, makes me just scratch my head. What happened to your military discipline and your leadership in the past? Because it worked when I was on active duty. We ensured we treated people, all people, with dignity and respect. But their focus has blatantly shifted. I am not surprised that they have stopped funding the weapons and the training that is required. They have also caused themselves to have a massive recruiting problem for a variety of reasons. One of them, you have to be vaccinated now on active duty. You are now eliminating your forces from service. You are preventing people from joining who otherwise would be qualified. And you're so concerned about the gender inclusiveness and racial inclusiveness that you're not focused on just being professionals and allowing everyone to earn their own way by merit, which is the way I had served on active duty for 20 years. If I ran around screaming, I'm a woman, hear me roar, make sure I have a promotion, I probably would have been demoted and removed from active duty. Now they're presenting it as this is what we want to do. So the Heritage Foundation was actually spot on. The military should be ashamed of themselves to go from building themselves up to being a force of readiness to now appearing that they couldn't even handle a major conflict.
Jessie Jane, how does this then translate to the perception of the United States on the world stage, and is that potentially dangerous?
Oh, of course, it's absolutely dangerous. You know, former Vice President Mike Pence spoke at the Heritage Foundation, and what he said about Russia was all well and good. But what we have to remember is that we have not been leading the way as a nation to ensure that those allies that are going to be mostly impacted by Russia's behavior have gotten off the pot. We have allies in Europe that have done little to nothing, have barely demonstrated any funding for the Ukraine, and it has fallen on the backs and shoulders of the American taxpayer once again. You either deal with this right out of the gate, which we should have well over a year ago when we saw the Russians circling around the Ukraine. They were all but screaming, we are here to invade. And the U.S.'s response was minimal. You didn't hear a reaction till the invasion actually started. And our European allies have barely contributed compared to the trillions of dollars that we are on the verge of contributing. I believe, what is the number now? Several billion, many billion, I should say. And we are now the forefront leader in funding, but not stopping Russia.
All right, Jessie Jane Duff, sorry, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your great insight as always.
I gotta say, I'm ready to follow her.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
ready to go.
Wherever she's going, we'll be right there.
I'm going with her.
Yep.